Here, the parents of a seriously ill baby have lodged an appeal against a High Court ruling that his treatment can be withdrawn. Yesterday, an NHS trust, which can't be identified for legal reasons, was granted an application to withdraw treatment in the child's interests. The 9-month-old boy has a rare metabolic disorder and doctors say he's in intolerable pain. Well, our correspondent James Kelly is here. So, James, this appeal is going on this evening. What's the latest news from the court?
Yes, as I understand it, the appeal is going on this evening. They've decided to go ahead with this appeal in a very difficult case. What you've got here is a hospital trust that thinks that the treatment they're giving to this 9-month-old boy is causing him intolerable pain, a life of suffering. The parents, on the other hand, say that they think that yes, their son is ill, but he may make progress, and they don't want this treatment to be withdrawn. He's on a ventilator. If that's turned off, he'll die within weeks.
Yesterday, though, a High Court judge ruled that the child, who can only be known as OT, again for legal reasons, that it was in the best interest that the trust withdraw the treatment.
Absolutely. It's a very difficult case, and on the one hand you've got the doctors, the experts saying that they've looked after this 9-month-old since he was 3 weeks old. They've been fighting to keep him alive, but with this metabolic condition that he's got where he's not processing food properly, he's got brain damage, he can't breathe without a ventilator. They're saying that it's come to the point where one doctor in fact described it as torture. But as any parent can understand, anyone who's got a child, you know, who loves a child can understand, if there's any hope at all, the parents want to see that exploited. So that's why they're challenging this, that's why they've appealed.
Now, I suppose this is similar to the sorts of issues that have been raised by the assisted suicide cases that we've seen recently, the basic issue of who decides whether someone lives or dies.
Absolutely. I mean, we've been hearing from the former Health Secretary, Patricia Hewitt, who's trying to amend a bill that's going through Parliament, the coroner's bill, so that people who go abroad with other people who are terminally sick, with relatives, for them to have assisted suicide, for them not to face prosecution. And cases like this and cases like that just raise the issue of, you know, who has the right over life and death? When does treatment turn into prolonging suffering? And that's the very difficult question the High Court's trying to address.
OK, James, thank you.
The parents of a seriously ill baby have tonight failed to overturn a court ruling giving doctors the powers to end his treatment and allow him to die. Yesterday, the High Court granted an NHS trust, which can't be identified for legal reasons, an application to withdraw treatment in the child's interests. The 9-month-old boy has a rare metabolic disorder and doctors say he's in intolerable pain. Let's cross now to the Court of Appeal and our correspondent James Kelly. James, I gather the judges didn't actually give their reasons for their decision tonight.
No, they didn't. We will expect some reasons by next week, but what's happened here tonight has been not quite unprecedented, but certainly very unusual. There was an appeal lodged today to overturn a High Court decision yesterday that the treatment could be withdrawn of this 9-month-old boy, and because of the urgency of the case, they decided to go ahead with the full appeal. The parents were saying they'd not had enough time to prepare. They wanted to have some expert guidance on this case and hear the appeal next week, but the appeal's been heard and it's been dismissed. And that's the end of the legal road for the parents of this 9-month-old boy. Treatment can be withdrawn.
So what happens now? Is that precisely what happens now, as far as the doctors are concerned, that treatment is withdrawn?
Well, I spoke to the solicitor, who's the solicitor of the parents of this 9-month-old boy, as he came out of the court. It's been quite a day, an emotional day for the parents. They actually left the appeal hearing as it was going on because they couldn't bear it any longer. They're so upset. And he told me that this is the end of the legal road for them. They'll have some reasons next week. But he intimated that the NHS Trust could withdraw treatment soon. And if that's so, this boy who has a rare metabolic condition, he has brain damage, he has respiratory failure, he relies on a ventilator, if that's switched off, he could die within weeks.
But there's nowhere else for the parents to go in legal terms, is there?
Well, speaking to the solicitor, it appears not. Chris Cudahy from the solicitors Kane Todner told me that this was the end of the road. Whether there's redress towards European courts, he seemed to indicate there wasn't. This is as far as they could go. And the news will be devastating to the parents who contended from the start that this 9-month-old could, in fact, have a quality of life, perhaps in the future. It responded to cuddles. It responded to being tickled on the feet. This 9-month-old boy their child they thought perhaps did have a future. But the Court of Appeal decided that every day that passes is prolonging the suffering, and so the appeal has been rejected and the treatment can be withdrawn.
James Kelly at the High Court, thank you.
The parents of a seriously ill baby have failed to overturn a court ruling giving doctors the powers to end his treatment and allow him to die. The High Court granted an NHS trust, which can't be named for legal reasons, an application to withdraw treatment in the child's interests. The 9-month-old boy has a rare metabolic disorder. Doctors say he is in intolerable pain. Let's get more on this with our correspondent James Kelly, who's been in court yesterday for the verdict. As far as the parents are concerned in this obviously very distressing case, James, is this the end of the road legally for them now?
Well, it is a very distressing case, so distressing in fact that the parents couldn't bear to be in court when this verdict was given. They appealed against the verdict that treatment could be withdrawn. That appeal has failed, and they were outside at the time. And in fact, Lord Justice Ward, who was giving the verdict, said that the judges were not unmindful of the horror of the predicament and expressed his admiration. I spoke to the solicitor afterwards, and he said, yes, this is the end of the road. There's a theoretical route towards the House of Lords, but he doesn't think it'd make it in this case, and because they haven't been able to delay that ruling that treatment can be withdrawn, there's a time issue in any case. So this looks like it's it.
You say you've been speaking to the family solicitor. I mean, are we likely to hear from the parents in the next few days about this?
Well, obviously they're deeply upset. Now that we've had the failure of this appeal, treatment could be withdrawn. Their son, in all likelihood, will die soon. We're expecting a statement through the solicitor in reaction to what's happened today. Whether we'll hear anything subsequently down the line is difficult to tell, but this is a very distressing case. The parents wanted treatment to be maintained. They thought their son had a quality of life. He responded to having his feet tickled. They'd made a video of him apparently smiling when he'd had his feet tickled in hospital. So obviously they're devastated. So we'll have to see if they can bring themselves to make any public statement.
OK, James, thank you very much. James Kelly.